Aw, shit. Here we go again.
Welcome to the Sloppy Book Club podcast. I'm Jenny.
And I'm Celese, and welcome to season 4, episode 9. On this week's episode, we will be chatting with the amazing author Elizabeth Stevens and
Yay.
discussing her latest release, All Superheroes Need PR. So we're really
hmm
excited to chat with her and have her on. So yeah,
Yay.
ready?
So you want to do drinks?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Duh. So,
What do you have?
I actually have a local wine. I went to what is it? What is it? A food market? No.
Who are you asking?
Myself and you. What is it called? Not a flea market, not a food market. Oh my God. Jenny, how?
Ah, I don't know.
When like when
Like
there's
a
like vendors and
festival?
stuff. No. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank. Anyway,
Hmm.
I went to a local
A
vendor,
place. She went to a
yeah,
place.
place. And they had a local wine from Orange, Massachusetts. It's called Home Fruit Wine, and this is their pineapple wine. So I guess they specialize in fruit wines. So they had blueberry, they had apple, pear. But I wanted to try pineapple because I love pineapple. We're getting into the summer. And I thought it would be really, really good. So I don't know how it's gonna
Hopefully
be.
it is.
He said no, he said that there's a liquor in this that
Okay.
to taste the alcohol.
All
So I
right.
was like, okay, we'll see. Oh yeah.
Ooh,
Oh my God.
yes.
That's strong.
Good.
And you could taste
That
the pineapple. Oh my God. I didn't even see my face when I made that face.
it was good. It was good.
Okay. Um, you definitely get the pineapple, but he is correct. You
Okay.
taste the wine. Like it's strong. Oh my God, my face is red. But yeah,
Sounds like my kind of wine.
it packs a punch. And he said it did.
Damn.
He was like, this one you're gonna taste, it's gonna taste like it's not gonna
All
taste
right.
fruity.
You'll have to send me a picture of that label.
Yes, I will. And I have to look up what I was talking about. But it's definitely like a not a flea market, a
Okay.
farmer's market.
Oh, okay.
A
Got it.
farmer's market.
That makes
It took
sense.
3 minutes for me to figure that out.
Okay.
What do
All
you
right.
have?
Well, I just have a sparkling margarita, the ones that come in a
Mm,
can. So, and I've already had it and it's really good. I mean, it's a
mm.
margarita. So,
Yeah, I'm gonna have to be sipping on my water because this, I feel it, Jenny.
really? Oh my
Yeah, that was
God.
really, really strong.
Well, all right. So let's actually just bring her on.
Yes, we're very excited to have you on.
Very. Before we get into like the writing and your book and everything, do you want to introduce yourself or tell us a little bit about you?
Oh, sure. Yes. So I'm Elizabeth Stevens. I'm a indie author at heart, but I've recently published my first traditionally published book with Molly. Super exciting, very nerve-wracking. Um, but I tend to write, as I say, I tend to write beastly men or sometimes just beasts who always get the girl. And I like to focus my stories, my FMCs on Black women in particular, because that's obviously very close to home and important.
Mm-hmm. We
Yes,
love that.
and we love it, love it, love it.
To
So, with talking about you, we want to talk a little bit about your writing process. So, when did you decide to become an author? What has been your inspiration to keep writing or even start writing?
Yeah, my author journey is like kind of a silly one because I've been writing since I was like teeny tiny. My mom told me that in order to get an American Girl doll, I had to write a story for it because I
Okay.
wanted one of those that looked like me because there's no Black American Girl dolls. And I was like, I don't really need another blonde American Girl doll. And so, yeah, so I started writing then, but I was always very adamant and very convinced that I would never become an author. I was like, that seems like way too unstable of a career, like just not for me. But then there was like a random month in like 2017 or something where I earned just totally randomly like $500 off of a book I'd published. It's actually The Hunting Town, which is a book I almost never talk about because it's like a mafia style romance, but it's got like 6 POVs in every book. I think it's like seriously one
Wow.
of the best things I've written, like from a creative standpoint. But
Okay.
it's like a trilogy and I just don't, I've like lost the mojo on it, so I don't know if it's ever going to be finished. But yeah, from that moment I was like, huh, I wonder. I was living in Germany at the time. I was not earning a lot because Germany takes so much out of your paycheck in taxes, which again, very supportive of, because not paying for medical bills and like having state services that actually function is
Yeah.
pretty nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not my critique there, but I was thinking to myself, like, wow, this is kind of interesting. I wonder if I could really make this happen. And then I was working an uninteresting job in 2020 and decided to go down to half time. And because, again, I was fortunate enough to be living in Germany, if you quit your job, you also still get unemployment. And so I was able to quit and collect 6 months of unemployment and try out the author thing. And at that time, I'd written Taken to Viraxia mostly and had started on Taken to Nobu already and just was like, let me see if I can try to actually get like a genre correct because that's not something I was very good at. Like Lord of Population, as population came first, and it's just a genre chaos, as is this book, as are most of the things that I write. But that book ended up doing really well, and I was like, okay, I think I can maybe actually do this now.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome. That's a great journey. So you said you went from indie to trad, like you just released your first trad book. How is that, how is that process for you? And like, how does it differ with social media and marketing between indie and trad?
Yeah, the indie to trad journey, I think, is something that a lot of us are kind of going through right now as like trad picks up more and more successful indie authors.
Mhm.
And it's a very interesting one. And I have to say that a lot of this gets attributed for me in my trad journey back to a Black editor who, even though I didn't end up working with, was the one who ended up putting me in touch with my agent and like has just been a big champion of my work, like behind the scenes, and is just so cool. And I really hope I get to have a chance to work with her one day. But I found the experience to be a little bit bizarre. It's been I'm a big fan of being an indie author, but the one area that I'm really struggling in is not. I think most people get into trad thinking like, oh, they're just gonna like market my book. I just don't have to do anything after I write it, and like that's absolutely not the case. So that's
Yeah.
absolutely no expectation of mine. But the production side of things is where I was like, I'm just drowning. I can't, like, there's so many suppliers, so many different titles, just like dealing with all of these things is getting out of control for me. So that was where Trad really came in and just made the whole process like so elegant and effortless. And it's like the first time
Nice.
where I've actually had somebody be like, your timeline is totally messed up. The state needs to be the state. The state needs to be the state. Like these characters' ages keep changing. Like it was really nice having like being able to produce a book that was actually like more cohesive maybe than like some of the other stuff I've published, or at least easier for me to make cohesive. But I will say that one of the big downsides, and everybody talks about this, is like loss of control. And so it's really weird for me to not really have an idea of how well my book is doing after release, because that's something that you kind of get immediate awareness of if you're indie.
Mhm.
You have your sales dashboards at your fingertips. You can see like what marketing efforts are working or not working. You have an overview of all of the marketing efforts you're doing. And here it's like, I have no clue what's going on behind the scenes. And like even
So
my
when does that come in? Like, how do you know?
Yeah.
Like,
I
how do
literally
you know how you're doing?
I don't know how I'm doing. It's so strange. It's because when you're working with like a big house, like even your editor, she's not a part of the marketing team. So when you ask your editor, like, what's going on? She's like, I don't know. We'll get a marketing wrap up in 3 months. Like, and they'll send you like screenshots of what has been done.
Wow.
And you're like, okay, well, that's nice, but that also doesn't really help because if something is being done now that's working, I want to be able to like,
Continue it.
yeah, I want to be able to help it along. And if something's not working, then yeah. Anyway, so
Wow.
that whole thing is just really bizarre. And then the bookstore thing, this is a problem for trad and indie, but the bookstore thing drives me crazy that I have to crowdsource where my books are found. Like that's just like I kind of hoped that maybe there would be a little more oversight from the trad in the trad world, and maybe there are with other
Mhm.
publishers, but with Montlake, I literally have no idea where my books are. I mean, I just produced like The Bone King and the Starling, and it's the same thing there. Like, I also don't know where that book exists, yeah, in the world.
Yeah. Wow.
And
Oh,
I think,
wow.
yeah, it's a little bit, missed expectation of just how, yeah, with this particular publisher, because it is Amazon publishing, like, I think maybe my one disappointment so far has just been
Mhm.
that it's been like I've gotten messages from booksellers being like, this is challenging for me to get into my store. And like that's frustrating because
Yeah.
you're like, okay, you understand that Amazon has a vested interest in obviously not sending people to bookstores, sure, but if a bookstore
Right.
wants it, like they shouldn't be actively discouraging sales.
Yeah,
Right.
Like
for sure.
Right.
For
one
sure.
would hope. Yeah, so that's been a little bit unfortunate. But I will also say that on the counter to that, some of the good stuff about Montlake in terms of sales that I just actually learned are that like when it comes to Kindle Unlimited, I was so confused why I wasn't seeing page reads and it was very frustrating. And then I found out that actually I don't get paid by page read with Montlake. If anybody picks up my book and reads more than 10% of it, I get like a whole ebook royalty. And
Oh,
if
wow.
anybody, yeah, and if anybody listens to even like 1 second of the audiobook, I get a full audiobook royalty. So like those are
Wow.
that's
Wow.
helpful.
That's
But
nice.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really nice. But I
Yeah.
can see how it can be challenging when you had your hands in everything and
Hmm.
now you don't for this particular book and things like that. So I can see like, okay, now I have people to designate and do things, but at the same time, it's just like, but I still want to know everything that's happening at the same time. So I could see like the ups and downs of it all.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And some stuff you're like, all I can do is kind of hope that it's being followed up on because
If it's any consolation, though, I have been seeing it on my For You page on Instagram, and
Like daily everywhere.
so
So,
out
yes.
yes.
there, and people are reading it because I
Yes.
have seen it. So I'm just like, yeah,
Mhm.
and I'll like it. And I was just like, it's so
I know, and I'm so grateful. It's just
good.
like it feels like my community is doing like a really heavy lift for me this time around, and I want to be able to
Yeah.
like show folks like the fruits of their labor, and it's a little frustrating to be like, I don't really know
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's
how well it's doing. And I granted Montlake does give me more oversight than like a lot of other authors get. Like another author friend of mine who had their debut come out like a couple months ago, their dashboard, like sales dashboard, is completely empty. Mine is populated, but it's only partially populated. And like I don't even know if that's like better or worse because it's like it's a little bit demoralizing because like I only see ebook sales and physical sales that are going through
Okay.
Amazon. And so then it's like I know that there are more sales than this. Like I literally have seen like 100 people post their reviews on Instagram today. Like there have to be at least 100 paperback
Right.
bought.
right. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So it's just like it's weird. Ask me again in a month. I'm sure I'll have it.
We
Yeah.
will.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Now, as you're getting into your writing, how do you prepare for it? Like, do you have a snack, a drink, music? What's your go-to, like, this is my writing zone. This is what I need to get there.
Yes. So when I'm not super duper pregnant, I can either work from the house, from the couch, or like out at a coffee shop, but I definitely cannot work in silence.
Mm,
So yeah, the TV actually just has to be on, or like at a coffee shop, that like surrounding, commotion and chaos is like really helpful. These days it's a little trickier just because I have to make sure my toddler is also like definitely out of the house.
Mm.
Toddlers have a great way of not being interested in the fact that you have a deadline, and yeah, so that's fun. But that's, yeah, my main way. And also when I'm not pregnant, sometimes I'll have like a beer or a glass of wine before I get going, but these days it's just tea.
When you are out, like if you are at like a cafe or something and something happens while you're there, has that ever like trickled into your story? Like an
No.
interaction or anything? Okay. 'Cause you're
Absolutely
just
not.
zoned in.
The thing, yeah, exactly. That's
Okay.
the thing. It's like when there's that other stuff happening, I probably wouldn't even notice
Okay.
that it
Okay.
was
You're
happening.
zoned in.
Either that, or I'm like thinking about something and I'm just like staring really aggro at someone like halfway across the
Oh my
coffee
God.
shop, and like don't even realize that I'm just like yeah, zoned out and just staring at someone.
Do you happen to have playlists for your books, like specific to your books when you're
That's like
writing?
one thing that I like don't really, my husband makes fun of me because I'm like terrible with music. So I don't really get the playlist thing. I'm like, am I supposed to listen to the playlist while I'm reading? It's too short.
Yes. Yes. You're right. You're right. It is too short. And then it stops and then it takes you out.
And then do I
Yeah,
have to start it over again? Like, I'm
that is
also
kind
like
of,
one of those people with like music and sex. I'm like, that doesn't work for
I
me.
get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
I
So
do
if
get it.
somebody ever like, that's like something I'm like, if somebody ever like wanted to put like, if I was like, okay, maybe I'll do that where I like hire like an editor or friend or something to put playlists together for my book, because no, it would be like the same Sleep Token song like over and over and over again would be my entire playlist for a book.
Do you ever go through a writer's block?
Yes, but I'd say it happens probably less frequently now that I have like deadline driven work than it used
Hmm.
to. Self-imposed, I just like, I think constantly back to like the first time I was pregnant and just like how much trouble I had writing then. I think like every pregnancy is different too, but this one has been a lot easier. Like I've produced more work in the last 9 months than like I think any other 9 month period in my author career, which is like really shocking to me. But I do think a lot of it is the fact that this is the first time that I have like externally imposed deadlines. And I tend to work pretty well when like other people are counting on me to get them something. So
Just a little bit of pressure.
yeah, needed.
When you aren't writing, what do you like to do? What's your escape? What are your hobbies?
Yeah, I mean, I'm like a homebody, but I'm married to like a deep extrovert. So it's a lot of being out of the house.
Mm.
So we have like lots of little adventures around town and spend a lot of time like in downtown Seattle and hanging out with friends and getting toddlers together and taking our dog out because he's basically like seven children in a fur trench coat. Like he does so much work. And yeah, other than that, just, reading, watching TV. Yeah, nothing too exciting.
That's how I know Mike has to drag me out of the house sometimes because I
Same.
will just stay home all
Yeah,
day and just
I
be,
would too. Even on Saturday, like I was just like, we agreed to go out. Why did we do
No,
that?
just talking about with me. Yes,
I
she
know.
agreed to go out.
We had our baby shower yesterday, like our baby
Oh,
sprinkle or whatever
nice.
yesterday, and I tried so hard to cancel it, and my husband was like, absolutely not.
I don't think you can cancel that.
I don't think you can
No.
cancel that.
No.
I mean, you could have used the baby as an excuse, but I think you're probably better off just having it.
And it was a good
Yeah.
time. And that's the
Yeah,
thing.
I had
Like,
a great
whenever he
time on
drags me out,
Saturday
I
too.
always have a good time, but I
Yeah.
never want to go out.
I think it's that initial like having to get ready and go. I think it's that whole process, getting into the mindset and like, okay, how's it gonna go? Like the whole process leading up to going out is the hardest part, but once I'm out, I'm fine.
Yes, same, same. And the other problem that we have too is just that we have so many house projects, especially now that we're like getting close to having a second kid. And my husband has no interest in like any of that. So it's like if a friend hits us up and is like, "Hey, you guys want to do X, Y, and Z?" then it's always a yes. It's never like, "Oh no, actually we need to like finish this like half
Mhm.
built cupboard or something." It's just yeah,
That's
always
a
out.
terrible excuse.
Yeah, exactly. It is. It's a crappy excuse. He doesn't want
Yeah.
to. I get it, but I'm like, we still just have a half built cupboard in our living room. So
That's funny. Now, if you weren't a writer, what do you think your career would be, or what would you have loved it to be if you weren't a writer?
ooh, what do I think it would be, or what would I have loved it to
I
be?
think I want to hear both.
Yeah, totally different questions. Because my mom worked in international affairs all over the world growing up. Like I lived my first 5 years in Mali in West Africa.
Wow.
And then she worked in public health all around. And so I kind of like always thought that I was going to be a career diplomat. It's like I'm super into languages. I love studying them, love living abroad. And I worked as like my first couple of jobs for like different UN agencies and international agencies,
Wow.
NGOs. And the more I worked for that type of organization, the more disillusioned I became with like the entire international development universe.
Mhm.
There's so, I mean, I could go into like an entire podcast on just like all the problems with it, but it just felt like money was not going to the right people, the right places. Like I felt super overpaid as like an American working in, South Africa compared to like my
Mhm.
South African colleagues. And then like efficacy, like no real anyways, there's no real way to measure like how effective you are when you're just like like promoting civil society initiatives. And so then, yeah, so if I were not a writer, I would probably still be doing that. But if I had the choice to do anything else, I think I would still want it to be with books, just because I kind of hit this moment where I was like, I don't think that my goals here and like the goals of international development are really to kind of like improve everyone's life, but
Mhm.
I kind of find it more meaningful if I can just improve like one person's life. So just getting like one piece of fan mail being like, hey, I'm like an SA survivor and like Lord of Population like really helped me cope with like some of my trauma is like has been like so much more rewarding. And I also think kind of impactful for like my contribution to the positive trajectory of this world. So I think I'd still want to be in books. And it's also like I listened to R.F. Kuang's like her one of her speeches, and she just talked about like how important it was like black folk working and or people of color working in the industry and just like how much they uplift like authors and readers and just like bookstores, like booksellers and stuff. And it's incredible like the impact that like one person can actually have in the space. So
Agreed. Before Instagram, like we're fairly new to this whole bookstagram thing. It's only been like what, 4 years or something
Yeah.
with us. But
Mhm.
like before that, I never really read any Latinx stories, any Black stories, because I never really saw them. I went to Barnes and Nobles and bought books there,
oh,
and like I never really saw them. So when we got onto Bookstagram, we were like,
Yeah.
what the fuck? And it was just like consuming them because you don't really see them. And I think it's really important.
And
To
it
re
was not only that, but it's the fact that like consciously we didn't even realize it until we were
oh,
actually like it was in our face. Because
hmm
I've always enjoyed reading. That has always, like, since middle school on, I've loved reading. And looking back, I'm like, I didn't read as diversely as I thought I did. And like, it made me really sad thinking about it that my first favorite Latinx author was in my 30s.
yeah, absolutely. No, I mean I've had the exact same experience. Like I look
Mhm.
at my shelf of like the books that made me kind of, and I don't think there's one like author of color on the shelf. And it's not to invalidate how
Mhm.
important those books are and were to
Right.
my life. Like I
Right.
mean, I will always say Douglas Adams is like one of my ultimate inspirations, but like again, he just falls into like there's like four white guys on,
Mhm.
you know, my list of top 10 favorite books, and the
Yeah.
rest are probably white women. And
Right.
that's super sad. And so I'm the
Mhm.
same. I've only now discovered like been
Mhm.
able to intentionally diversify my
Yes.
reading. And
Right.
now I don't read any white people anymore. I'm like, I already did that for long enough. So I have to counter. Like if I
You
spent my
gotta even it
like
out.
That's funny.
like what
Definitely
is
being more intentional now about
Yes.
reading.
yeah,
Yes.
I mean, what did RBG say? She was like, when somebody asked her once, like, how many justices would have to be women for it to be equal on the panel, and she said nine for at least 50 years, because that's how long there have been only men on the Supreme Court. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, so if I read my first, okay, how old are you when you learn how to read? 25, 25 years, yeah.
I guess it would be like when the first book you could remember as far back, you know?
Yeah,
Like
yeah. So at
what was
least
that
in
first book?
like 15 years, I have to only
Yeah.
read like people
God.
of color. Yeah.
So we want to know about your book. We love learning your writing process and getting to know you,
Mhm.
but we want to give you the opportunity to tell us about your book, All Superheroes Need PR.
An author's favorite question. But yeah. All Superheroes Need PR was my attempt at a contemporary romance. And I say attempt because I am deep in my monster romance era right now, and I'm a fantasy and sci-fi girly, and so it's so hard for me to write a book about real people doing real things. And so I have some real people working in the real world, in a situation in which like superheroes have fallen from the skies, a la Clark Kent Superman style. They crash landed on Earth and were turned into brands as part of this like capitalistic entity. And they were kind of divided into two separate groups. You have the villains on one side and the heroes on the other. And so some of those that have yet to claim a side, one of them is the Pyro, and he is someone who controls fire, not interested in humanity, however, doesn't really want to be a hero, doesn't want to be a villain, just is kind of apathetic about the entire like human race, until he shows up on his first day of an attempt to be convinced by the heroes group, and he meets the PR director who's been assigned to him, and he pretty much is like, there's something about this girl, like there's something about her, and it's either hate or it's love. So I'm going to go with hate first.
Yep.
And then he totally freaks her out and scares her off, and when he realizes that he's actually maybe a little bit protective of her, he then immediately flip-flops and is like, actually, I think she should be my wife. And meanwhile, we have a very normal human woman who's like, this man needs therapy and I'm already in therapy and I know better than to get involved. And so the next 250 pages are basically him trying to convince her that even if he is not maybe the best hero, he's still a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And we loved it.
Yes,
We did.
I like it a lot. It's a good mix of everything because
Yeah.
you get your little sci-fi, you get your little like, out of this world kind of creatures almost, but then you also get like that nice romance and story, and it was just like a good blend of it
Yeah.
all.
I know
Yeah.
we always talk about how like she's a romance reader. I don't read romance unless there's like a fantasy element or it's dark romance. And this was like the perfect like I mean I was gonna read it anyway because I've
Yeah.
read all of your books. But anyway, it's like regardless, like there was something different enough about it for me to love it as aside from it being just like a rom-com, you
Yes.
know? So I absolutely loved it. And like, why? So, how'd you come up with the plot? Like, why superheroes?
Mhm.
this plot this plot just got away from me. If I could have come back, like come scaled it back somehow, I would have, but like I couldn't make the pieces go together without it being this grandiose kind of chaotic thing. And it kind of started with actually me watching The Boys, that TV
I
show.
love The
That.
Boys. Like
Yeah,
it's so
I
good.
like kind of hated The Boys because I wanted to like it so much, but it's so nihilistic. And I was like, this is 2025. Like we are already in a dark place. Like
Yes.
I
Yes.
That's
cannot
true.
watch one more minute of this show that makes me think maybe I need therapy. And so I was like, this is kind of interesting that I hadn't seen like superheroes in romance yet because I was like maybe there's like a lighter version of The Boys. And when I looked, I found one book and it was by Mariana Zapata and it was Gracie and the Grump, like an adult romance superhero novel. And I devoured it and loved it. I think she's a great writer, but she's also a slow burn contemporary romance author. And she approaches it from that lens. And so I was like, there is a significant lack of explosions coming from like my Marvel girly heart here. And I was like, maybe I should try like a contemporary style superhero romance that immediately got overtaken by my monster romance era, as I mentioned, and just quickly morphed into a monster romance because
Love that.
that's where my head's
Love
at.
that.
Yeah.
I was just telling Celise, I think it was our last episode that we recorded. We had talked about you briefly, and I was telling her, no matter what you write, if I didn't know who the author was, I would know it was you. I don't
Yeah.
know what it is about your writing, but I would know automatically that it's you.
And then a monster is probably hiding
Yeah,
somewhere in
it's
the
gonna come
The
around the
monster
corner
somewhere.
sometime.
yeah, yeah.
Where is he
Yeah.
hiding?
I know it's really funny reading like the reviews of people that know me and they're like, "Oh, I love this book," and then reviews from people that don't know me and they're like, "What is going on? Like, what is wrong with this person?"
That's funny.
As you're writing, how often do you think your first draft and your outline, how often does it change if it changes at all? Does it like how does that process go for you?
I don't outline, so I'm a pantser. I don't have any idea where the book is going when I get started. And somebody gave me a good word the other day. They were like, the word is tone. So if I strike the right tone with the book off the bat, then it's usually actually a pretty easy first draft. Although my first drafts always expand. It doesn't matter how long the original book is, but my first draft always expands by 10,000 words, like almost exactly every time, which I find both reassuring and quite fascinating because I'm like, how can a 40,000 word novella expand the same amount as like a 140,000 word tome? But anyways, that's apparently part of my process. And so if I can get the tone right, then everything else kind of falls into place. But if I don't, then like the book can change by like half, which is
Wow.
terrible and terrifying. So like Shadowlands Omega, I remember I ended up having to do like at 60,000 words, I ended up having to do like a 40,000 word redraft because it just wasn't the
Yikes.
right tone. Yeah. And it's still like it turned out to be like one of my favorite books I've ever written because I'm
Yeah,
just obsessed with
I
Yaren.
love it.
Um, but this book was pretty okay writing, but it was my first time working with a developmental editor because this is a trad process. And I had like a bit of a learning curve with like, okay, I spent a lot of time getting the book in like really good shape for the dev editor, only for me to go back and make like almost the same amount of changes I'd made after my first draft versus book two, which I just finished. I like used the dev editor more. And I really liked that because it made the writing a lot easier. So like I just gave them my like crappy first draft. And then when I did my edits that I would have done anyways, I was able to incorporate their feedback and just kind of like eliminate a whole huge step, which was great. The process is pretty messy.
I was gonna say, because you do like have to condense and edit. Is it like chapters? Like, was there a chapter in the book that you thought was great and you wanted it in there, and then as you were going through the process, you were like, no? Or was there a character you had that you completely took out? Because we've noticed from authors that we've had on before that we recently had one that had a complete like character and then just took her out of it completely. So does that
X'd her
happen for
out.
you?
Yes, it does actually. And it's kind of a weird feeling eliminating a character because it's almost like a phantom limb. Like you feel as you read it back in like subsequent editing edits, like that there's somebody that should have been there. And that same thing happens to me with scenes. So I won't, because I'm a pantser, I write towards scenes that I'm trying to get to. And sometimes the scenes will come to me and they're like such good scenes and I desperately want to include them, but then by the time it's like I just can't make it fit in, and that's always like really disappointing to me. So like in All Superheroes Need PR, there was like a scene just because I was so frustrated at the discourse going on around like bathrooms and like who can use what bathroom, that there was like a scene in a bar where like Marjorie was like uncomfortable or like dismissed basically from a bathroom. She's a trans woman character
Mhm.
and she's being Marjorie, she's like, it's fine, whatever. I'm just going to go down the street to a place that I know. And this upsets Vanessa. And of course, Roland, who doesn't like anything that upsets Vanessa, like lights the entire bathroom on fire because he's just like in the middle of a conversation and like doesn't want to be bothered with this
Oh
stupidity.
my God.
But I A, couldn't find place for it, and B, didn't really want that aspect of like trans folks suffering to like come into my book, because it's just not something that I feel is necessarily appropriate for non-owned voices authors to write. I know others probably feel differently, but that's kind of my like, you don't profit from like another group's pain is kind of my like
Yeah, yeah.
recommendation as a
Yeah, of course.
sensitivity editor.
Understandable.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so I didn't end up including it, even though I thought it was a really fun scene. But book two was interesting because I finished that one. It's up for pre-order and comes out November 25th.
Okay.
And that one, I know, I'm super excited. It's totally a totally different character dynamic, which is
Wow.
really fun because this one is like a shy FMC surrounded by this like backbone of a community that she's built and this like gruff MMC who's like not interested in people, places, and things. And book two follows Monica, who was not supposed to have
Ooh.
her own book, but was a side character I wrote, and she's just so badass, and I loved her. So I was like,
Is
okay,
the
yeah,
photographer?
yeah,
Yeah.
she's the war photographer. And so she's kind of an island and doesn't have a lot of support. But I had originally written in like a sister character for her that didn't end up contributing to the story in the way that I wanted her to. And actually, it was the dev editor who was like, you need to bring this character in more because she's not doing enough. And I was like, you're right. So I deleted her altogether.
Oh.
I was like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because the editor, she kind of pointed out like this is just another pet peeve of mine, but Monica is like a plus size character, and um the dev editor, there's like competition between her and the sister character, and some of it was around weight that I had written in unintentionally, and I really didn't like. I don't
Mhm.
like that either. I do not like when fat characters are like in competition with skinny characters because of their weight. I think that's the dumbest thing in the world. And so I was like, if
Yeah.
there's even a hint of that happening in your read through, then I did something wrong and the skinny bitch just needs to die because there's like that's just
I love the power.
yeah. Yeah. So
You
we
know
got rid
what?
of
She
her.
doesn't need a sister.
Erase her.
I pretty much
I
got rid
love
of
that.
her entire family. And so there's like a kind of a frenemy character that ends up subbing in for that dynamic in a different, totally different way. But yeah, but then yeah, the main male character is
Oh
also
my
so
God.
different from Roland. And it's Tyrannus, who we kind of see briefly. Actually, we meet him on page one, like from afar, because
From
he's
afar,
like
yeah.
golden boy, but
Mhm.
we learn that that's quickly not the case. And he was a lot of fun to write because he's just a pure narcissist. So it's fun. Yeah, he's just a major red flag. But Monica is
Okay.
so fun because she's also like
I'm
totally like,
excited. I
I
can't
am
wait.
too.
I was expecting you to say, oh, maybe like another year it'll
Mhm.
be out. I'm super freaking
I
excited.
know. I was really stoked too because normally, yeah, trad books are like bajillion years out. And you're like, okay, well, I
Hmm.
forgot already about the first book. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
they
I
had me
love
on
that it's coming.
yeah, they had me on a really tight deadline for book two that I ended up pushing back by like 3 whole months, and they're still managing to get it out
Wow,
in the same year. So
Wow.
that's pretty
that's
cool.
awesome.
That's amazing.
Now, who was out of this book the easiest and most difficult characters to write for you?
Mm, I'd say the two leads were probably the most difficult to write. Just because I've never written like a FMC with like I've actually never written like a clumsy FMC, which I realize is actually kind of funny because it's a common kind of FMC you find in a lot of romances. And I was like,
Mhm.
I've never written one. So for me, it felt brand new. And I actually don't read a lot of them. I think Black, just because I am like reading a lot of like Black and Latinx authors right now, like we just aren't really like the clumsy, like shy types. Like, so I just
I
don't really
am.
get that. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, it's funny. And so it was really fun. It was fun for me to like explore that as like a different kind of character. But I didn't like I was nervous about the anxiety rep. And so I wanted to make sure I did that right. And I think it's also hard writing a counter to someone who has like severe anxiety, especially when it's someone who's like kind of hard like Roland. And so that was like a balance that I wanted to make sure I struck
Mhm.
properly. But other than that, the supporting cast was incredibly difficult to keep track of, and the family was also incredibly difficult. There was actually nobody in this book that was easy to write. Maybe the villains. I really liked three as a character. They're like this, I don't even know how to teleportation transporting the supervillain, and yeah,
Yeah.
they're a lot of fun to mess with. I somehow I like I've come up with like some really good side villain characters lately. So they're one, and then from Shadowlands and Dark City Omega, the Merlin character, who's like the head of this
Mm.
like trash community, are like two of my favorite characters I've ever written, and yet they're like
Wow.
these not even the
Just side
major
characters.
villains.
I
Yeah.
find that a lot of side characters for me always end up being like one of my favorite characters in
Yeah.
books, regardless if they're the villains or not. But
Right.
usually,
I feel like they help carry the story along too,
Mhm.
So like even though they're side characters, they are really important to the development of the plot and the story because they do kind of like push it along.
Yes.
So I enjoyed side
yeah.
characters a lot.
And all like the friends and everybody that hangs out together in this one, like their banter, the way they support each other, like Marjorie, how she's always like, "Come on, let's get it together."
Yeah.
Vanessa's all shy. Like I
Mhm.
absolutely love that whole dynamic. You did a really good
Yeah.
job with all that.
Well, I
Especially
appreciate
when
it.
she's like, "No, you are gonna do it." Like she even changes the way Vanessa like critiques herself. And she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna try," and she was like, "No, you are. You
Yeah.
are going to do it. There's no trying." So I love that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really wanted, because it's also one of my pet peeves in contemporary romance, that it feels like the two mains never have friends. And I was like, I want to have a big friend
That's
group for this
true.
person. Yeah, or they have like one roommate or
Like
like
one or
one,
two people.
yeah.
Yeah,
And I get
that's
why,
great.
because it's hard to like flesh out a character and make them stand distinctly from one another when you're
Mhm.
writing that many. But it was just like one of my main objectives was with this book was writing a big cast.
If you can spend a day with one of your characters, who would you choose and what would you do?
From this book, it would probably be Marjorie, just because she is a person who I wrote that I think personality wise, I probably have a lot in common with. I'm the friend who's like, get it together. So I think that would be a lot of fun. What would we do? I would like to go to the movies. I haven't been to see a movie in like a
That's
million
so
years.
cute.
Yeah. Yeah, it would be great. So that's probably, and drink a glass of, or maybe a bottle of rosé, because that also sounds
Nice.
lovely in the sun, or go wine tasting. That would be my backup option,
That's fun.
or both.
I was thinking three so I could travel. Like we could just go places, even though
True.
he would be really bad,
Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't
but
I
we
know
would
could
if
still
be
travel.
scared to travel with him.
yeah, I don't
I'm
think
like,
I
I do not want to get into
I just
trouble.
feel like, can we get there and then like we do our own thing?
yeah. but I don't know
maybe.
if I don't know if I'd want to know where they would take me. So
True, true,
All
true.
right. I'll shut up now then. What are your plans for this series? You already have book two going. Do you know how many books you want to do for the series?
this is again where being a trad author comes into play because if ideally everything goes super duper well with like this book and everything, then I would
Hmm.
be super open to continuing the series, like for anywhere from like me, I would probably want to stop at like 4 to 6 max. Like this very mates, I look back at that series and I'm like, how did I do 11 books in the series? That is
Yeah, I
crazy.
need to catch up. I think I
Yeah,
did.
it's too many. Yeah, so but I really want to do a third book just because I ended up writing like a whole bunch of this character into this book. And I was like, gosh dang it. Like I clearly set about the writing of book two with the intention of having this character have his own book. But again, it'll depend on how it goes. So
Yeah.
I would like to sell them a book three. And if that's all that comes of it, that's also totally happy with that.
I'm gonna go a little off script because I really want to know. And I was speaking to Jenny about it before we started. Is there a chapter or a line in your book that you were like, damn, I did that?
Oh my
Because
God.
I know there's a line for me that I posted and I just loved it. I thought it was great. So if you don't mind, I'll share it.
Yes. Okay. Go for it.
Okay. Let me pull it up first. So it was the line where he says, I may be a hero, but I'm only a hero for her. For you, I can be a villain just fine. And I read that and I was like, damn, that's a good
That
line.
is a good one.
Um, it's it's one of my favorites. And I just want to know when you wrote that, you were like, yeah, I fucking wrote that.
I never, ever, ever think like as I'm writing, I'm never like, wow, that's a really good line. But I open my books all the time and I'm like, did I write that? Like,
Yes, you
damn,
did.
like that's good.
I
But
love
also,
that.
it's like kind of weird. The lines that I end up writing down, being like, oh my gosh, this was really good, are never the lines. Like
Um,
they're never interesting lines for other people.
Oh,
Um
they might be.
yeah.
I can't even remember if this line even made it into the final book.
No, but I
Funny.
like I was saying, we were talking before everything, and I was just like, oh, something I want to know is because I think about it when we were talking about the book, I was like, that's the first thing I thought of. I was like, that was such a good line in the book.
Yeah, okay. So like the kind of like the lines that made me chuckle that I was like, okay, these are kind of funny. I think I posted a couple of them recently, but when they're like about to get frisky. And then she's like, it was only one guy 2 times, I whisper, but he cuts me off by pressing the rough pad of his thumb to my lips. He leans in close and I can feel the vibrations of his chest as he growls. Then he'll only die twice. He gives my chin a little pinch. Come.
Love that.
No, I love that one. But then there's like other random lines where it's like all understanding I thought I'd mined for has dispersed in the wind like the seeds of a dandelion. And I was like, oh, that's very pretty. Or like just
You
random
should
lines.
definitely share a bunch of them just randomly and
Yeah,
see.
they're
I bet people would respond very well.
completely out of context. You have no idea. They call me a hero, but I'm a bad fucking dude. I want to kidnap her. If she hadn't agreed to let me move in with her, I might have had to. Was another one I thought was fun.
I love how she was like, no, you can't move in. Oh, yes, please move in.
Yeah, exactly.
Mind you, he was like, get out or like no. The first time they ever met. So he
Mm.
turned to mush and I love that. So I have one more question. It's a random one. What is one book you always recommend? This is one we always ask.
Yeah, I have like a list of five, but the one I always recommend is Sucker by Natalie Shea. It's like was my favorite book of last year. Absolutely loved it.
Okay.
But then I currently am reading Stumped, which came out last week during my release week, by Anna P. I think she just goes by Anna P. But it's the first time I've ever read a book where it's an all South Indian cast set in South India, which is like super fun. And she's obviously a South Indian person because that would be
Mm-hmm.
weird if she weren't. Yeah.
Yeah, just a bit.
But
Yeah.
it's a cricket romance, which the first time I told
Wow.
them that, they were like, so he turns into a cricket? And I was like, not that kind of cricket. It's a
Oh
sports
my
like,
God.
yeah, I have too many monster
Well,
romance.
I was gonna say, coming from you, I guess it's valid.
Yeah, it was a valid question.
Yes. Now, because you write, like you have like your foot in all of these like little mini genres in your stories, do you read that way as well, or do you simply stick to one type of genre?
I like kind of only read contemporary romance, which is
Really?
yeah, and it's because I have a hard time reading. Like I find like there's just so much world building going on in my stories that I find it kind of like too much to read the worlds that other people are writing. So I tend to just read contemporary romance. And also like I read a lot of like slow burn, like Mariana Zapata, just because I'm like, I don't know. I read stuff that's like the opposite of what I'm working on. So I'm sure if I ever
Yeah.
go back to or try to write a proper contemporary romance, I'll probably end up reading a bunch of sci-fi smut.
The
Yeah,
best.
understood. Do you have any other plans
Yep,
happening
that was
this
what I
year?
was gonna
Any
say.
signings or anything like that? I know you're busy.
So,
Yeah.
You're very busy this month.
yeah, this month is carnage. But actually we have a super exciting announcement coming out on Friday. That's June
Friday.
10th. No,
Mhm.
it isn't. That's some other day.
That's
Um,
next week. June 10th is a Tuesday, and I only know that is because my students graduate that day.
Yeah, so not at all this Friday, but June 10th, we have an announcement coming out for like a super exciting project that I'm a part of that will launch over the summer in just like a few weeks now, which is so fun. But for fans of this very mate series, my contribution to this may or may not be a return to Picosa Earth, but with
Okay.
monsters, because like I said, I cannot let go of my monsters right now. And after that, yes, I have book two in the super series coming out November 25th. And for the like kind of second half of this entire year, I'm really focused on trying to get the population series completely finished. So I'd love to write the last two books in that series and have them come out.
Okay. So there's five.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we have Constanzia and Tannen, and
Okay.
my book will be last.
That's exciting.
Mhm. What
All
about y'all?
right.
What are y'all reading right now?
I
Um, I don't even know what I'm reading right now. What am I reading? Oh, I'm reading Chaos Wielder by A.E. Cosby. A.E. Cosby.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
like a bounty hunter type fantasy, dark romance. There's a lot of sex in it. It's
Wow.
really good.
Wait, I've heard of that
It's
one.
so it's so so good. I'm blowing through it.
Chaos
But
Wheel.
it's definitely like dark romance, dark romance. Lots of triggers.
Yes, I also read a lot of dark romance.
Okay, so you might like this.
Yes.
She's
Okay.
a, she's a she's a bounty hunter and she's like tasked in like sort of saving their world. It's Earth, but it's like their
Cool.
world.
Okay,
Yeah,
nice. I'm
really
in.
good.
I am in between I'm actually looking up the names because I just remember them by their pictures. So I'm in a mix of Fang Fiction by Kate London, or Stayman London. That one is a fun one. It's kind of like vampires and them being like stuck on an island kind of thing and not being able to get to humans, but
Oh,
it all takes place in like New York. and it's really, really good. And I'm doing the audiobook of that. There's another book that I'm reading, and I cannot remember the title of it. And it's a physical book, and I'm almost done with it. But I cannot remember the name or the author of it. It's in my bag. And
It's
I
a
was,
romance.
it's like a paranormal romance
Mm.
because she is connected to like a psych net kind of thing where they don't feel anything, but then there's werewolves that can like change, like changelings, they call them. So there's a population of people who can change into like some form of cat or some kind of wolf kind of thing. And it's like a whole
Okay.
society thing.
Oh my
Okay.
gosh, that
Love
sounds
that.
that sounds
But I
about as
can't
chaotic
remember
as
the name
mine.
of the book.
I'm also still working on, as I have been for like months now, the the Hacienda by Isabel Cañas.
Oh,
Did you guys read
so
that
good.
one?
I love that one.
I'm
So
What is
good.
it?
obsessed.
Hacienda.
Mm-mm.
I don't think you read that. She has a new one coming out this summer, I think.
Yes, well, she just
The
had the one that
Possession.
came out. Oh, she just had the Vampires of El Norte come out, which I haven't read
Yep,
yet. Is that
I
one?
read
Did
that
you
one
read that
too.
one?
That one's so good. I like the Vampires of El Norte more than the Hacienda, but they're both like equally great.
Is it
She's
also
a great
horror?
writer. Huh?
Is it also horror?
Yes.
Nice.
Yep.
That's Jenny's thing. She
Hmm.
says sci-fi fantasy is her thing, but I think horror is too.
Yeah, my
Especially
genres
this
are
year.
romance first and then horror. But I don't know, I found it harder and harder to find really good horror, and I'm
Yeah.
really loving the Hacienda.
Yeah. It's really good. I'm
Ask.
excited for her next one.
Always
I've
ask.
been trying to get her to read horror, but even like mini horrors, they're just like little spooky
Oh,
ones.
don't
Like,
get there.
It's hard. The struggle that I'm having with horror is that I grew up reading Stephen King, and he has like his own issues. But the one thing that I
Mhm.
do like about Stephen King novels is that there's like violence against women is never a trope. And when
Mm-mm.
I started trying to diversify my horror reading, I realized that violence against women is like a really common horror. Like even the Hacienda has a little bit of that, and that kind of like I don't
Yeah.
love about it. So I'm trying to find like a really good my goal in life is to find a really good horror. This could also be a movie. I've been looking for this in movie form where we finally have like all male like victim protagonists
Hmm.
in the horror.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If you
I
have
I
any
would
recommendations for those,
I
I'm
will
in.
think about it.
Yeah.
I
Because
will let you
I'm
know.
tired of women running for their lives in the woods. Like I
Okay.
need a man screaming for his life for once.
Okay. Okay.
That's you know what? That's really interesting
It
because
is.
I've never thought of that.
Yeah, it's my psychologist friend gave me like a crazy lowdown on why like women tend to be often the victims in horror movies, and yeah, and like how sexual assault plays like it. Anyways, fascinating, but like it is a very strange thing that is a role dominated by women.
Mm-hmm. It
Very
is.
much is.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Hmm. All right. I'll think about it and
Yeah,
I will DM you.
yeah, please do.
I will let you know. All right. So
I
I
don't
think
got the recommendation.
Yeah,
no,
if it
you
was by
don't.
if it was by a BIPOC woman author, that would be even better.
Okay. All right. I will definitely. Oh, Immortal Pleasures by V. Castro.
Mm,
She is a vampire. Um I can't really get into it without really spoiling it, but it's almost like a historical horror romance.
what's it called?
Immortal Pleasures by V. Castro. That one was a good one.
Okay, nice. I will
Read
check
up
it
on
out.
that one.
Um,
Okay. Yay! But if I think of any more, I'll let you know.
Brilliant.
So that is the end of our episode. Thank you so much for joining us. We had a lot of
Thank
fun.
you.
Thank you. I really
Yes.
appreciate it. And sorry again for me being so chaotic in the beginning.
It is all good. It worked out. It was totally fine. All right. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.